Excuse me. Let's stop and have a summary and excuse me. Let's have a summary and a review of what this is all about and why we're here. If you're a gal, we want to we want you to get into the character of a 1950s home economist. And to that end, you have a three-bedroom brick house and 2.2 children and a husband to take care of and a house to run. You have a budget. How much is that budget going to be? You have how big is the bedroom? I'm told a bedroom 10 by 12 feet comfortably holds two boys or two girls, that sort of thing. How big is the living room? How big is the backyard? What's something that detached house is what gets people out of poverty and into plenty. When people talk about poverty, they usually don't talk about what poverty is not, what is plenty. Plenty is home economics. And so there's, you might ask how many oranges to use. You know how many orange trees to plant. What kind of furniture do you want? How much is the school for the children? And if you're going to do all this, clothes and medical care, if you're going to do all the producing, you get to do all the consuming. So how much are dues at the country club, that sort of thing. And I'm hoping you will find gals to take it very seriously. How much money do you need to get the shop up and running? And if you're a guy, we want you to get into the character of a 1950s husband, and you have a job that produces something, such as the proverbial plumber, and how many hours would you have to work in order to come up with that money, with that much money? If you can come up with those two figures, you can get started. You can do something about that. Remember, home economics is when our married couple is viewed as the basic economic thing. They're viewed as one person. And it becomes the basic economic building block. You picture our house, our detached house. Then go out to the side and start with farming and mining. Then above that, manufacturing. And above that, wholesale, retail, and repair. And above that, retirement, education, and recreation. And doctors and lawyers form a kind of lattice that holds it all together. And there's a priest that causes it all to come into being to begin with. It's a God and country thing. This comes out of popes and monks and monasteries, and there's a reason for it. And so let's remind ourselves again. In the 1950s, the Communist Party here in the United States came out and said that they would overthrow the United States right around the year 1973. And there was an upheaval in our society then. You can go back and you can see houses from the 1950s, the suburbs, and how clean and nice they were. And the guys who lived in them were the guys who built them. I grew up in the house you're looking at, and this was a neighborhood that was literally built in the 1950. And our dad was a repairman. Next door was a plumber. Down 2 doors down was a milkman. And up the street was a guy who worked in a feed store. And you get the idea. The same people who built the houses lived in the houses. The same people who did the consuming, did the producing, did the consuming. And so you go back to, you picture that house, and you ask the gal how many oranges she wants. You know how many orange trees to plant. And there's a catch there. The catch is they have to practice virtues, and it becomes a religious thing. You can see the flip-flop in the 1970s, and that was a very important moment, something we have to stop. You have to get people to stop and talk about. That was when we went from home economics to individual rights. And you can see the lazy vehicle. You can see people being made well off. And then there was a point when they reached they had a choice in society. They could have gotten onto a maintenance level, which would have been the religious thing, or they could have cashed in on it all and became the professional consumers in a peasant and property class society. They chose the latter. And so it starts to look like this, the lazy V, like that. And you can see abandoned houses and abandoned neighborhoods in places like Detroit. And you can see the very, very expensive houses on places like Malibu, and they go together. One caused the other. These people up here caused this down here. You draw a straight line, and if you had one, if the home economist had one, there would be this huge middle class. But these people, if these people exist, these people down here will disappear. But these people up here can't exist. If these people exist, then the people in the middle, they can't exist. And the people down here come into being. The rich get richer and the poor get poorer. And these people up here, they're the cruel, queer, atheistic, communist, and fascist. And in the end, that's an expression from the 1950s. In the end, they're both the same characters. They simply hold absolutes. I use the example of American slavery. Picture that beautiful mansion, the Southern Mansion, and then everybody in the slave quarters. And you realize that in communism, the prima donna intellectual government, they talk about the class of intelligentsia. And all they talk about is that class living in the big house, and they decide everything for the proletariat. And the proletariat is nothing more than slaves. You either live in housing projects or you live in tenement houses. Who cares if they're slums or they're both slums? And in this camp, they're called the bad guys. And over here, we're called the good guys. And so that leads us to the classic battle of good and evil, the priest and the pimp. The priest is on one side, and the priest says, say what you mean what you say. Everything else comes from the evil one. And then you draw a line, and there's a flip-flop in the center. It goes out to the other side, and there's a pimp. And the pimp knows how to manipulate, hustle, and con. And in this world, he's the very definition of what defines the bad guy. And you can see that in courts in the United States. Judges wear black robes because Catholic priests 500 years ago in Great Britain wore black robes. And they had all this stuff down very well. Blackstone and other characters, if I remember the name. People who hustle, con, manipulate, and intimidate were considered malicious and bad guys, and they're the ones who went to jail. And the laws favored the good guys if you were normal and well-adjusted and as best a human being could be, and you made money by putting people into their own business. You were the good guy. The Pope is in charge. The Pope holds the moral high ground. The Pope takes the leadership position of washing the feet of the apostles. And that turns into a normal supply and demand curve in home economics. You don't realize it's a religious thing. The same is true in psychology. In psychology, the shop manual definition of mental illness is the normal taken into the abnormal, from a cold to the flu to pneumonia. The Pope, the Catholics say, hold on, go backwards. From pneumonia back to the flu, back to a cold, and the normal is normal, but not good enough. The young man sits in a chair and fantasizes about the gals. He opens his eyes, he does it again, only this time he's fantasizing about actually getting the gal pregnant. And there you go. Those very powerful thoughts that have to do with sex and that sort of thing, to associate it with actually getting the gal pregnant is not an actual thing at all. And now I understand what original sin is. The same is true with fear. The same is true with your environment. Your environment changes your attitude changes the environment. And you have to learn it. It's a learned thing. And it's a very famous philosophical phrase. What takes away your free will? Fear, sex, ignorance, and violence. What gives you a sense of free will? You have to have some outside other imposed thing. And that's where Christ comes in. You hold Christ as an absolutely perfect person. And there's a story, there's a philosophical thing behind that. And like a computer cloud of electrons. And you hold that as faith. If you hold that as faith, then you head out again. You're a normal, well-adjusted person. You're if you choose motherhood as a profession, then you become a good wife, then a good mother, a good husband to the wife, and a good father. And once again, it spills into home economics. You're on your way. And that's how you get a huge middle class. And so we're desperate to have our gang together. If you're listening to this, it's about 9 o'clock in the morning in Australia. We're hoping you would start chiming in. And here, this is coming to you from Tucson, Arizona. And we're hoping to gather our gang. So if you're a gal, how much money do you need to get things up and running? If you're a guy and you happen to have a job that produces things, how many hours would you have to work? I tried to do that here in Tucson on my own. I pictured a gal making $50,000, which is way too much to do, but it was within the margin of error, well within the margin of error. And it didn't come close to making ends meet. Between the rent and health insurance and food and clothing and everything else, it quickly got out of hand in a big hurry. She doesn't stand a chance. Oh, by the way, just to get things out, you don't rent property here. You don't rent property to people. You don't rent property from people. You put yourself in your own house. And even though there's plenty of exceptions or going from to, if you're a home economist, then you get to live in a house. And if you're single, you live in a condo, to make the point. You don't, you own it, and you walk down that road. And that's how you get to a huge middle class. So I see all these gals that are desperate, and I just watched one gal on the computer, and she was talking about how she was going to lose her food stamps next month. And that spills into what's going on here today. Let's have a little talk about that. Notice that for the past several years, just about every year, they always never get the budget in on time, and they always have to stop the government. But nothing ever changes. In reality, everything keeps going, but not this year. This year, people are going to starve and be in dire straits. And that's all political. It doesn't have anything to do with Donald Trump. Donald Trump ran standing up to a bum's rush, and we're going to hold him to it. And it's not a Democratic position, and you better watch it. He has to watch it. You don't go from the Democrats back to the Republicans. Ronald Reagan did that, and it doesn't work. And you can see what they're doing. They're pushing society to the point where everything collapses. And you can see the streets are filthy. You can see abandoned houses. You can see factories going out everywhere. The whole idea is to push us to everything, so that everything collapses. And you're going to be a part of that if you don't watch it. What's wrong? What do you do about it? And how do you do it? Well, you're part of that. You have to stand up and do something about it. First off, let's take time out and point out, we talked about a priest and a pimp, which is a classic battle of good and evil. Let's remind ourselves in how a pimp recruits a prostitute. It's a three-step process. First off, there's the attitude. So let's use our little trick. We'll close our eyes. We'll separate the act of sex from the act of getting the gal pregnant. And then we start in. We don't lie. You just don't tell the truth. And you can sort of feel the emotions. Words don't put emotions. It's hard to use a word to describe an emotion, but I think you'll get the idea. Okay, it's a three-step process. Step one, the pimp isolates the gal from her gang, so she's all alone, and he stops her from moving in one direction or another. She's walking, he stands in front of him, and she walks in the other direction, he stands in front of her. And that's stage one. From the point of view of the gal, she can't walk in this direction or another. Stage two, he touches her in some fashion. He shakes her hand, but then he doesn't let go. And so he's gone from out here to out here. And stage three, he goes inside her head. He says something like this: hey, I've got a temper and I just don't know what I do when I have a temper, right? And then he sort of jumps at her. And from the point of view of the girl, she has an instantaneous decision to make. She can either Uh, she tells herself, this guy's going to kill me if I don't do what he says. This guy's telling me I better be afraid of him or I'm going to die. I can't beat him up, so I have to let me fake it. Let me pretend like an actor does so I can get through this. The only problem is it's terribly serious. And so she has to get into character, just like many actors do. And if she does and her attitude changes, that's it. He's got her. That really is it. In order for her to get out of that, there has to be some outside imposed physical act that gets her to change her attitude back. Catholic confession is one of them. You also have to have somebody step in and stand up to the guy. You have to walk away, regroup, and restrain. And that involves, of course, making a value judgment that says that he is the bad guy. That was my big mistake all these years. I always assumed that people who hustle, con, manipulate, and intimidate people were the bad guys. And I'm not the only one, but that was a mistake. And that was thrown out, among other things, in the 1970s. Just as a reminder, in the 1970s, courts came out and said, we shall have no religion in government. And so you can have anything except religion in government. And that's another way of saying you're living in a stereotypical, straight out of the textbook definition of a satanic church. Religion in the normal common sense fashion is Catholic. It's straightening up your emotions, and they had the sexual revolution. It's making money by making somebody else better off. And it's doing that because Christ rose on the third day. That computer cloud of electrons that you hold as faith, that changes your attitude, and then it becomes a kind of deduction. This three things that make up God and country, they threw that out. They did have the sexual revolution. They institutionalized pulling a bum's rush and not lying, just not telling the truth. And they made it okay to make money by causing people to have to work more hours. And right there is the peasant and property class society. It's neither cruel, vicious imperialism or cruel, vicious communism. It's hustling. It's taking things to extremes. You notice that we don't have the word judicial means to establish facts that are true as true. This is opposed to the sophistical, which means to establish facts that aren't true as true. And they threw out a judicial court. That they snuck it in is what they did. And that makes one of us not the most legal position. And I think this is the correct one. And if they're not, I think I'm trying to be too polite here. They're the ones that are committing treason, and we're not. You have to say that out loud, and as much as you can. So we're right back to the gal. We want you to get straightened up. In this world, everybody's a Yank. Is race relegated to an endearing quality of your appearance? A man is a man and a woman is a woman. You straighten yourself up emotionally. You become a good husband and father if you choose it. And it goes on to home economics. And so society is made up first of the summation of normal, well-adjusted people, as normal as you're going to get. As normal as a human being gets. It goes against the chimpanzee side of us. It's not a natural thing at all. Yeah. Oh, I think I lost my thought there. So you become first a normal, well-adjusted person, and then you call in, and then, excuse me, I just remembered. So society is made up of our gals, first our gang, and then the summation of family units. And what I'm trying to get at is, if you're that gal in St. Louis, it's up to you to first get into character and call in or speak up and say, okay, look, this is what I need. I'm going to be a professional mom. I have 2 kids and we'll probably give you a couple more. And this is what I need to do the job. This is how many hours I work. This is what I need to get the job done. So there's no way you can take care of the kids and go work outside. The definition of work is 2 different things. And so just fork over the credit card, Bob. And if you're a guy, we're going to split the mother and father up just enough so we can see the argument. How many hours do you have to work? The gals and guys who cashed in on it all, uh, they're the ones who work less and less hours. They don't work at all. They're professional consumers, but they look terrific. And you and I, this poor slob that was decent enough to go back and ask the kid what he wanted for his birthday, or if you're a guy to try and get him a bicycle or something, you were left in dire straits, and that has to change. Just to said something else to make sure it's said out loud. There's another gal on the computer, and she's beside herself. She's on food stamps and she's on Section 8 housing, and she says, "My child starts school, and when my child starts school, I'm going to lose my Section 8 housing unless I find a job," or something like that. No, not here. That's not how it works here. She was obviously our 1950s home economist. She was obviously an American citizen, and she doesn't get food stamps. We don't call it food stamps. She doesn't have Section 8 housing. And the point for this is that the working life of a professional home economist is different from the working life of the professional husband. She works these ungodly hours until the kid starts school. And once your children start school, that's when she has some time to recreate. She already has a job, a very important job. That's her time to get a tennis racket and go to the club and have a massage by some guy named Bjorg and do that sort of thing, and volunteer at the hospital and do this and that. That's for her to do. And we were there, by the way. Life was considered easy. Kids were considered cheap in the sense that it didn't take much money at all to put shoes on the feet. And that's done very intentionally. You're a public administrator. You arrange things that way, like the Baseball and Football Commission arranges the parameters of competition. They threw that out. One of us committed treason. It isn't us. And so if you're listening to this, it's up to you to speak up. And if you're a guy, it's up to you to start to man up. You have to do something about this. They're going to starve, and they're the good guys. And the people who aren't going to starve look terrific, and they're just mean people. They're malicious. Well, it's getting on now, so I'm going to make an appeal. I'll be here, try and be here at Saturdays, and maybe try and get a podcast. And then on Sunday mornings, Los Angeles time at 9 o'clock, which is noon at New York and 5 in Great Britain. I'll see if you can't pass a word and come start using the chat and start telling us what you need. If you can come up with those two figures, if you can get our gang in the playground, you can start to do something about it. Just so it said, what's wrong? They threw out God and country. Willing the good of another person, straightening up your emotions, and doing it because Christ rose on the third day. What do you do about it? You go back to home economics. You go back to God and country. You go to the Supreme Court. If you can't be an American Yank if you can't physically be an American Yank without philosophically being Catholic, well, you become Catholic. So you go to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court says, instead of court saying there is no God, you lay down the law. They say there's only God, only Christ did. Then you take it from there. How do you do it? Well, first you get your gang together, and this is where I get a little disconcerted. But the truth of the matter is, they're the ones that committed treason, and we didn't. And so you're going to have to face people who are very violent and queer, who hustle, con, manipulate, and intimidate people. They don't lie. They just don't tell the truth. Hey, you're a decent human being, aren't you? Give me $20. How dare you? I'll throw a fit. You're going to have to put your life on the line just to say the word no to me. Anyhow, I skipped a bit. Then it's a straightforward three-step process within the boundaries of the United States. First step is to come up with a course that teaches people first a sense of original sin, and then how to stand up to cheap pimp, the classic battle of good and evil. I couldn't do that, but I'll bet there's enough people out there that can. And then the next three steps are together. Phase one, you go here downtown, and I'm sure those judges will appreciate that what they did, and they'll stand down and go get a garbage sack and form a class of peasantry beneath the class of poverty that they caused. And then you have a choice. Instead of taking over the place, you find some poor slob of a criminal trial attorney that defends the poor and the oppressed, and you insist he takes over. You insist he lives in a doctor's and lawyer's house. You insist he takes Wednesdays off, and you insist he plays in that silly tennis tournament, whether he likes it or not. And then you head through the rest of the government that way. You grab your three-quartered hat and fife and drum, and that's phase one. Phase two, you pretend there's a ladder in front of you that's upside down, and you put it right side up. All the guys that got into gold and real estate in the 1970s, I'm sure they'll give up that gold and real estate. Here in Tucson, some guy came in and bought about 1,000 houses and turned it into rental property. So I'm sure he'll give it up and go straight to the bottom of that ladder, and he can go and join the judges and people and pick up the garbage. And you put those houses on the market, and those suddenly the price of houses drop. And you lay down the law, you only sell those houses to our gal who's no longer in Section 8 and no longer on food stamps. She's got a budget, and she's got a house, and now she can take care of the children professionally. And the same is true of the guy. And let's say somebody is set a few rungs down on the ladder. They said the trend is your friend, and they went out and did that. So they go a few rungs below the ladder. Just like a ladder, you turn it right side up. You put the gal back in her house and the guy back in the house, and that's phase two. You have a reallocation. You straighten things out. And then phase three, you build, man build. You Darwinize the heaven till there's a chicken in every pot and a car in every garage, until you get on a maintenance level. And that's the sort of thing you do. So I'm hoping you'll speak up and call in, and we'll hopefully see you next week and pass the word. And on Sundays is 9 o'clock Los Angeles time as well.